Man, there sure hasn't been much coming out lately. Guess I'll check Steam. There's something new on there like every day. Oh, a game I already have got re-released. Well, that'll have to do. Dungeon Defenders Eternity, huh? Well, that's about how long I played the first one, so the name's fitting. The original Dungeon Defenders is a game I really liked. Like, a lot. The combination of tower defense mixed with hack and slash RPG clicked for me right away, and I was hooked. Soon after, my wife and friends joined in, and we played the hell out of that game together for hundreds of hours. But despite loving the time spent with Dungeon Defenders, ultimately the endgame just didn't cut it for us. It became completely laborious to achieve anything. Our loot and character progression hit a brick wall. Many levels were too large with 4 points that all needed to be guarded, sometimes taking half an hour or more just to set up the perfect defenses, only to be wiped out in the first wave. Survival matches could literally take several hours to complete as the size of the waves reached multiple thousands of enemies. The endgame was just too much time invested with too little reward. And there was a few instances of Catch-22 where you would need the gear from a difficulty level in order to survive on that difficulty level. With this in mind, of all the features advertised in Dungeon Defenders Eternity, the rebalancing of the game and the loot had me the most interested. As soon as I loaded up Dungeon Defenders Eternity, I immediately noticed some differences. Actually, I immediately noticed some graphical errors, but let's just skip that part. For starters, as soon as you hit play, you're dropped into a public online tavern, which now serves as a public lobby of sorts, making it a total marathon of random twits, and no longer your personal haven adorned with your trophies and such. As you might imagine, this makes the tavern a huge noisy quagmire that you won't want to be in any longer than you have to. The new emphasis on online play is very clear. The game is installed and run through a program called Playverse, which seems to be Trendy's brand of online quote-unquote services. But as far as the customer is concerned, it just means you have to be online to play the game. Oh, and your tavern will be full of strangers spouting racial slurs and profanity. You're welcome. For now, I don't really have a problem with having to be online to play, since I mostly play online with others anyways, but I may have a problem with it after the game servers eventually and inevitably go down, or Trendy goes out of business, or gets bought out, or a meteor hits the database, or one of another million possible scenarios that screws me out of playing. But if I couldn't stand DRM, I wouldn't be on Steam to begin with. For some reason, you now have to return to the tavern after every single mission. It doesn't matter if you succeed, fail, or what. There is no button to go to the next level. If you fail, there is no retry, and if you succeed, there is no play again. There is just return to the tavern. And if you don't click to go back to the tavern yourself, the game gives you 1.5 minutes to spend your skill points and collect your loot before it boots your ass. This is extremely obnoxious. There's been more than one time where I was comparing loot that had dropped only to be booted to the tavern before I could pick it up. Now I could just pick up everything, but since inventory management is less user-friendly than MS-DOS, I'd rather not. If everyone is going their separate ways after the level anyways, why hurry us along? Can Playverse not handle the load for a few extra minutes? Also, before a match starts, everyone has to sit around and wait for exactly 35 seconds. Every single time. For no reason. Even if you're going solo. There is no way to signal that you're ready to just skip past this nonsense. You just sit there. Nothing's loading, nothing's happening. There's no sound and there's no music. Honestly, if the timer wasn't there, it would seem like the game had froze. Despite my complaints about these changes to how the matches are handled, the changes to the actual game part of the game have been quite enjoyable. The UI has been improved and the game in general is easier to read, like mana gems are much easier to distinguish, harpoon launchers no longer have stupidly huge projectiles, etc. The addition of pet abilities, consumable items, and activatable amulets really gives you the tools you need to make game-changing actions during the combat, making them a great addition that adds some more depth. Survival mode is now a single 1 hour long wave, which since it makes survival mode much shorter and therefore far more bearable, I'm calling it a good change. However, there is a problem. Since it is just one wave, you can't switch characters after the start to build the variety of defenses you might need for the onslaught, which makes single player survival mode far less interesting. This game is built on the premise of using multiple characters to build effective defense combinations, and now one of the most important endgame modes is actively discouraging it. To me, this is a contradiction between the level design and the mechanics design. The game mechanics say use multiple characters, but the new survival mode level design says don't even try. This is a very simple thing to address, but only time will tell if they do anything about it. Another problem with single player is that now the mana and loot and chests are player specific, meaning everyone has their own chests, and when someone opens a chest you can't get their mana and they can't get yours. Now this is a cool change, but in single player this means there's 1/4 of the chests, and therefore mana, that there would be in a 4-player match, making it very hard to survive the first wave. But again, this is another easy problem to solve. To get an idea of the difference, I reinstalled and played the original Dungeon Defenders. In Eternity, Glitterhelm Caverns has 400 less mana than in the original. If you're a single player building for the first wave, that is a significant amount. It's brutal. Honestly, I'm not surprised the single player in Eternity is poorly balanced, seeing as how single player was added after the launch of the game, and even then only because many people complained about the inability to play solo or host private matches. I have a hard time picturing a group of game designers that couldn't tell ahead of time that people would want to play solo or in private matches, so did they purposely leave it out? Why? Was it rushed to release because they knew they could patch the game later? And I'm so glad I didn't buy this on day one because I can't imagine having any fun having to play every match with a bunch of dipsticks too busy drilling into their cups to do anything useful. Is it just me or am I coming across bitter against other players? Sorry, but this is one game you do not want to play with random people. There is no kick function and other players can sell your towers. Other players can sell your towers. Other players can sell your towers. Don't play with random people. As I mentioned, the most interesting aspect of this re-release is how they were going to handle the rebalancing. Looking at the original Dungeon Defenders, it becomes very clear why I felt the game needed rebalancing. That's just 4 towers. Can anyone see what the hell is happening? Hey, at least this guy's having fun. Now, it's already clear that they fumbled a bit on the single-player balance in Eternity, but like I said, it's only been implemented for 3 days, so I'm not surprised. Here's hoping it gets addressed. But how did they handle the in-game balancing overall? Well, in-game isn't implemented yet, so who knows? Nightmare difficulty, aka in-game, is not available yet, so it's going to be a little while before we can tell. But if you weren't convinced the game may have been rushed to sale, missing game modes are a damn big indicator. One thing I can say they did screw up is hardcore mode. Hardcore mode used to mean that if you died during a wave, you couldn't return until the end of the wave. Now hardcore mode means that if you die, you lose your character and all of your gear. Huh? Okay, let me explain why this is not a good idea for this game. Normally this kind of thing is found in roguelikes, or hack and slash games like Diablo. In Diablo, if I get in a situation that's over my head, I can run the hell away. I don't win, but I don't die, and that's what matters in hardcore. In Dungeon Defenders, as soon as the match starts, you're either going to win it or lose. There is no other option because of the nature of the game. It's binary. Either your crystal is destroyed or it isn't. There are no other outcomes, meaning that if you are outmatched, there is nothing you can do about it. If you have no escape and no counterplay, what's the point of a permanent death system? Anyways, despite all my complaints, I'm having fun with this iteration. It definitely has potential, and I'm hoping the devs make some good decisions and adjustments. However, I won't be spending large amounts of time with it until the patches start rolling out. If you played a crapload of the original like me, you'll most likely have some fun with it, and for owners of the original, it's discounted right now. If you're new to the series, this isn't a bad deal either, as you get nearly all the DLC with this version. It is worth noting that the original has offline play and local co-op, which Eternity does not. For me, however, like I said, the rebalancing is the aspect that's going to make this version worth it or not, and there's no way to see how the endgame will play out yet. Dungeon Defenders as a series is definitely worth your attention, but I can't really recommend Eternity until all the features are implemented, and we can actually see how it's going to stack up to the original.